Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here, and welcome to another eMarketer Tech Talk, where we host guests from ad tech, martech, and media. I'm Emmy Lederman. I'm an analyst at eMarketer, and today my guests from Lily AI and Merrell will talk through how they're using natural speech and search behaviors to find and target new customers and younger generations. Let's meet my guests. Joining me is Jane Smith, VP of Digital Marketing at Merrell. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Emmy. Great to be here.
Thanks for being here. And we have Purva Gupta, who is the founder and CEO of Lily AI. Hi, Purva.
Hey, Ami, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
So Jane and Purva have a great presentation for you, and afterwards we'll open it up for Q&A. You can use the chat window to submit questions for the Q&A and to communicate with other audience members. So with that, Purva, over to you.
I'm so excited for the conversation with Jane, but before we jump into the exciting part of the conversation, I'd love to sort of set the stage here with the state of AI in shopping today, right? And the TLDR here is there is a lot happening right now. It's much bigger than Google's release of AI mode, although that will also basically accelerate a lot of these changes because we still live in a digital Google world. Yet at the same time, a lot is changing. So number one, not all queries drive clicks now, right? We're starting to see a lot more of zero-click search behavior. Not all purchases happen on e-commerce sites now. We now have all of this native checkout in places like ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc. And then not all shopping is human now. Like you have all these bots buying on your behalf with Visa and Mastercard. So it's a lot of changes that are happening really fast. And so then the next question is this all tech hype? And my short answer to that is it doesn't seem to be that way because the consumers are adopting and adapting. And so, to this end, we actually, Lilly, did our own consumer research in January 2025, where we asked 2,000 consumers about their shopping habits and how they're using AI. And what we saw is 40% shoppers reported using AI assistance in their shopping already. And the average shopper who was basically making more than five purchases a month, that number was even higher. So it's like the beauty of what's happening right now is that it's driven by the pace that the behavior of the consumer is changing at an unprecedented pace, and it's driven by the consumer, right? And if we look at a cut of which type of consumer is adopting this, right, faster, it's definitely the younger consumer, right? In that same research, what we saw is that Gen Zs are using this way more than all the other groups, but everybody else is also following. And so what's also interesting about this is a latest research from eMarketer where with that behavior changing from the consumers, the ad dollars are, of course, predicted to shift as well. And so this research predicts that 1 in 7 search ad dollars will move to what is being called the new category of AI search advertising by 2029. And this is almost like a retail media like growth. So this is non-trivial and will have a big impact. And again, we know how this goes. It starts with search, shopping, and then ad dollars basically follow, right? And so what's fundamentally happening here? What's the promise of this AI-driven shopping experience? It's basically AI can understand the shopper intent better. And let's dive into that a little bit more. Understanding intent starts with the search itself, right? We as consumers are basically using a lot of natural language, the real words that we are using, very conversational. We are now we're sharing a lot more of the occasion, the holiday, the benefit, the concern, the like all of that comparison that we need, style, trend, everything in how we are searching. And that is different by different types of platforms too. The way that we're searching on Google is different from the way we're searching on Amazon, TikTok, and now Perplexity or a ChatGPT is a whole different game. A lot more words and a lot more context is being used in our search queries. And and how does that compare to where we are at today, right? If you look at today, retailers and brands are have optimized for a lot of merchant speak and the marketer speak, and not so much of the consumer speak. And there is a new entrant that is the machine speak. You need that all of these, the gaps between merchant slash marketer and the consumer and the machine speak, all need to be bridged for all of this to work for basically the commerce of the future, right? Then the question is, how do we solve this? Like so far, we've focused a lot more on sort of the merchant speak and the marketer speak. How do we solve for the consumer speak and the machine speak? And this is where what comes in is basically optimization of the product content. So product content optimization for consumer, merchant, marketer, and machine. Nice alliteration there. And and again, what does that mean? Let's go into that a little bit deeper. If you look at the consumer speak here, it has to be a lot more dynamic feedback loops, captures subjectivity, includes synonyms, all the different natural language ways of what the consumer cares about, right? If you look at the merchant speak, it's a lot more about the product data. It needs to be accurate. It needs to be really thorough. It needs to be complete. It needs to be aligned with the brand guidelines and the taxonomy, all of that. If you look at the marketer speak, it requires formatting by different destinations. It needs to be optimized by performance for the channels. It needs to be in sync with the PDPs, right? And then the machine speak on the other side needs to be structured. It needs to be a lot of structured data with the schema markups and the rich metadata. It needs to be in natural language that is almost preferred. And then it's increasingly becoming feedless, right? So there is a lot going on here in different types of data that and this gap that needs to be bridged. And product content optimization basically does a really good job of making sure all these gaps are filled. And so before we go into sort of the interesting part of the story here about Merrell, the way that I'll summarize this first section is to say, what a time to be in commerce. If you're if you're a vendor, if you're a brand, if you're a builder in commerce, what a time right now, because a lot of rules are changing. And it's such an exciting time, especially for the consumer to experience a new way to shop. And so now jumping into sort of the exciting part here, let's talk about how Merrell is navigating this new rugged terrain in a fashionably field-tested footwear. Okay, the alliteration is sticking. Uh, so let's jump right in there. So Jane, I'd love if you could start us out by telling everyone more about Merrell and your marketing priorities.
Absolutely. So Merrell is really about sharing the simple power of the outside with everyone. It's really our mission to get as many people outside as possible, living their lives outside in all ways possible. And this was obviously in 2019 and 2020, this accelerated during COVID, and we found that people were finally, starting to connect more with the outdoors and connect with community more in the outdoors. And we see that as we continue through this decade, we know that anxiety is at an all-time high, and being outside and being in community outside is a really important piece of lessening that for people. And so we're very excited about our core mission, and everyone at Merrell is, just an advocate of getting people commuting outdoors. Yeah, I would say one of the reasons that we were brought to Lily Eye, why it was so attractive to us, is that people out there were typically spending their time outdoors in their own sneakers or in, Crocs or sandals or things that were in many ways unsafe for the environments that they were surrounding themselves in. And so it's also our mission to try to educate people on the right gear to support them in all of the different outdoor activities that they want to endeavor in.
That's amazing. Thank you for saying that, Jane. And I love that mission, right? Like happy outdoors, right? That's just so fantastic. Lily's mission has been to bring humanity to shopping, right? Like that vision started with understanding sort of the natural ways that consumers speak and shop. And now with AI native search, we're seeing people search like I said earlier, with a lot more words. So like on average, it's now like, 23 words versus 4 words, what it was before. And it's like a lot more sort of like natural way of looking for something or describing something. And so I'm I'm re- I'm really curious. What are some of the search trends that you are seeing at Merrill right now?
Yeah, I really love that slide that you showed that was the convergence of all of the different ways of speaking, because it's no longer just about best hiking boot or, new trail runner, and all of those things still exist for sure. And I think that we do a really great job talking about all of the technical pieces of the shoe. So, we can we talk for longer than people want to hear about lug depth or traction or the kind of waterproofing that we use. And all of those things are certainly important when you're shopping for a piece of footwear when you're going to hike or trail run. But what we were really missing is this connective piece to how are consumers really thinking about the details of the shoes that they're looking for. So when we first started talking to Lily AI, I remember there was an example from a brand that they were talking about leggings, and they had said that one of the biggest attributes was leggings with cell phone pocket. And I thought to myself, yeah, I want a cell phone pocket in my leggings, and I started thinking about all the detail that I use when I do my own searches for apparel and footwear. And it really just, helped us start thinking, the consumer is getting much more detailed and deeper in the way that they're searching for our product. And we need help to understand exactly what those terms are. So that is what we came to you for help with. And, we've been seeing a lot of really interesting tagging happening throughout the first few months that we've been working together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the other big point here is that it's not just like one attribute or just like one thing now, right? Like it's about you want a legging with cell phone pocket, and then you're adding like three, four more other, you know,
Yes.
uh, other pieces of context to say I'm going here and the weather is going to be like this and I'm looking for this and I want in this color and I want in this style, and it's like, whoa, a
Yeah.
lot of context about what the consumer is now expecting from that shopping experience or that recommendation of like what is the best for my context. Don't just show me the best leggings out there. Like, yeah.
Absolutely. And people would, we're finding search, what's a shoe I can wear on the trail and on the pavement that is, comfortable right away and in the color green that's really popular right now.
Oh, yeah.
That might be, the way that people are searching to find something versus just what's the best hiking boot. So it's really expanding the way that we're thinking about how consumers are trying to find us.
And for us at Lily, like in that example of like the 4 or 5 things you said, even if like brands are taking care of those as like sort of intrinsic, details about the product, but it's then the words that
Yeah.
consumers are using versus the words that merchants are using and marketers are using across different channels to describe that, right? So like that further compounds the problem of not just the detail, but then how that detail is being, you know, uh, searched and shopped is like the other big challenge that sort of comes about and will only further be aggravated in this new world where there is humans and machines shopping, trying to figure out like does all of this information accurately sort of make sense for the bot to then surface it to a human to say, okay, like, is this good enough?
Yeah, and I think that shopping is a really personal experience. And so I think that what might look boho chic to one person might be not to another. And so it's something that maybe we would never have thought of that would be connective tissue to one of our products, but that we're finding people are searching for and then clicking on one of our products. It's a new and exciting, area for us to dig deeper into.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so true. And so on that same vein, my next question would be like, what are some of the biggest wins and surprises that you're seeing, especially with the younger consumer that you guys are focusing on?
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest wins is really how we're thinking about content around our product, and I think that there's just always been a way of doing things, which I'm sure is similar to a lot of brands out there, and you get into sort of a pattern of how you're going to market. So I think that now, looking at our dashboard and realizing, the different terms that people are using to find our product is helping us understand not only how to update our content on site, but just generally in the ads that we have out in market, the campaigns that we have out in market, or even our own social environments, the different language that we can use to connect with consumers and bring them in, and as well as to get them to find our product. I think specifically with Lily, I will say to others out there, it was a very easy onboarding in this phase one. It was a very low touch solution for us on the brand side. So it was, an easy connection in, and I think the flow of data coming through was really quick for us to see, how people were searching for us out there. So this kind of first phase that we've been through has been really painless.
I love that, Jane. I was on a call with an exec 2 days back, and they at least asked me 4 times. So my team has to do nothing. Are
Right,
you
exactly.
sure? Are you sure? And like that was just like music to my ears. Like it is also true that there is a lot of companies who promise that, and like then it doesn't end up happening that way. And so
Yeah.
we're so proud of the fact that we've made this a really easy experience for the brand that we can do all of the heavy lifting behind the scenes, and then like the brands are able to spend time and in more meaningful things in this process and more meaningful decisions that they need to make still about all of the execution of this, but like we do the heavy lifting. And so I'm so glad to hear that. And that was funny for me 2 days back.
Yes,
Um,
I know. We felt the same way at first. Are you sure?
yeah, totally. So to go a little bit deeper into sort of the focus on testing that you guys have today, right? Like in terms of the two demographics, the younger and the not so younger audience, like are you doing anything different there in how you're looking to do testing across the two groups?
Well, we know that, and this is again something that I know is true for most brands out there. It's all about new consumer acquisition. If we don't bring new consumers in, then we don't see growth. And so I think initially when we had our initial test period with Lily, we had their control and test group. We could really see the uptick in traffic, which ended up being qualified traffic of people that were really searching in a way that we weren't expecting, and driving that qualified traffic to our site. I think that's the difference. There's one thing to increase your overall traffic, which you can buy your way into pretty much through any channel or any vendor, but it's qualified traffic that matters. So one thing that we found with the way that people are searching with those detailed searches, once they click on one of your ads or click into your site, they're much more likely to either buy, whether it's on your site or at a wholesale partner, but they're much more interested in what you have to offer because it's meeting that specific need and it's not so generic. So I would say, that's been a big learning for us, is that this sort of detailed search and taking advantage of all of that rich information brings more qualified buyers into our site, or qualified traffic into our site. I think too, what we're looking at, this SEM to GEO, we know, and you said this earlier, Purva, that generative search is the future, and that those search results are taking over space. where it used to be, paid search or even organic search, which is very hard to find on search result pages these days. And that the most important way to actually work within those systems is to have content on your site that is connecting with consumer natural search and natural language. And in order to understand what that content needs to be, this testing that we've been doing with Lily AI in partnership with your team has been giving us the information to be able to then go do the work in our own site to make that happen.
Absolutely. And like you said, like I think going forward, it's only going to get harder, right? Like to be found, to be sold, right? Just because there is going to be the intent will have to be understood quickly, and that's what will have to be surfaced. And so brands that are understanding that fast are going to just basically show up more. And to create that data at scale is actually not easy, right? Like
Yeah.
it's it's just so difficult in how we have experienced this with lots of customers that, where the product data and product content today is at a brand in how it has existed over the last 20 years is has its own constraints, and to like roll over to this being like ready for agentic commerce is a whole another game. And of course, doing that at scale is then a whole another thing. And the fact that this is constantly evolving. It's
Yeah.
not a one-time exercise that you just do one time and then, okay, now my site is ready. And then like, that's it. Like, that's also not true. And so I think it's I have just like so much empathy for the brands right now in how this is changing so fast. And on
Mhm.
the other side, it's all sort of driven by the pace of how the consumer wants it. Okay, I need it by noon on Saturday. Like that's how fast this is moving, and so it's a challenging yet exciting time. And so maybe the last question here for you, Jane. I know we're moving fast on time here. What's next on your testing agenda, right? Like as you look at AI testing and R&D and sort of balancing that with near-term business results, like how do you think about what's on the roadmap?
Yeah, I think, kind of what you just said, one way that we can use this is to pressure test sort of macro trends too. We are always looking ahead. We develop product a year and a half in advance. We're looking at trends out into 2027 and even 2028 now, but it's still a ways out, right? So we get a lot of input, but then this can help us understand how quickly people are adapting to those macro trends by how they're searching for products. So I think, using this solution and just generally to track consumer behavior helps us understand how quickly we need to adapt to some of these macro trends in future. So that's really helpful. I think on the technical side of things, the second phase for us is to really incorporate this technology into our PDP so that we can go beyond just the search advertising that we have out in market, but use the information that we're getting from Lily AI to actually impact seamlessly, once we can get those connections made, the content that we have on our PDP, our product listing pages and our product pages on site. And that's going to be, to me, where the magic really starts to happen too, is that it's going to get even more visibility for our brand, both in SEM and GEO. And it's going to bring even, a larger group of new users, new qualified traffic, and ultimately buyers into the site.
Fantastic. I love you mentioned about the macro trends. That is such an important part of our pitch, and that's so important for brands as they think about the future, right? That is such an important thing, and we hear it all the time. So this was a fantastic conversation, Jane. Thank you so much for all the insights. We
Yes.
absolutely love working with your team, and we're excited for the whole roadmap that our two teams have put together in all the different channels that we are looking to optimize. So basically, just to very quickly summarize here, to bring the two sections of the presentation here together, you need to optimize your content for the marketer speak, machine speak, the consumer speak, and the merchant speak. You need to bridge all the gaps between those and be ready for the commerce of tomorrow. Number two, start with optimizing content. Like you need to optimize the content everywhere. If it's SEM, SEO, GEO, whichever, like whatever you call it, you need to optimize it everywhere. And definitely start with Google. Don't just write off Google. It's where short term we still live in a Google world. Start there, but don't stop there. Those are some quick takeaways, and I see there's lots of questions here, so I'll hand it over back to Emmy.
Perfect. Jane and Purva, thank you so much for that presentation. It was so interesting to hear you talk about there might be this idea that there's a lot of like tech hype around some of these trends, but you're really following what is happening with consumer behavior. And instead of doing a quick search like best hiking boots, you're really seeing that consumers are kind of getting more into their searches and sharing details about what they're up to. So that was really interesting to hear about. So we have some questions. One for Purva is you've spoken about the positives we can expect to see with Gen AI and conversational search, but can you spend a moment on the watchouts and potential pitfalls that a brand needs to be careful to avoid when adapting their strategies?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of thoughts on that topic, but the one that is top of mind is what I said earlier, just a few minutes back, that this is like for people to understand, to adapt your product content is not a one-time exercise. This is an ongoing exercise going forward because what the consumer cares about is changing and constantly evolving. So this is not a one and done exercise. So previously or so far, we have lived in a world where product content was created one time and then like tweaks were being made here and there. And like that's how that journey went. And it was manually created, right? Most of the product content, even today, mostly is manually created where humans are writing all of this content for different channels, formats, enrichment types, etc. And in the future, this is not going to cut out. It needs to be AI optimized from the get-go, and it needs to be it needs to be AI generated from the get-go, and then AI optimized, continuously to make sure that it is ready for agentic commerce.
And I know we already talked about how consumer behavior is changing in these early stages, but this next question is also how quickly should we expect to see consumer behavior change? And to what extent do you think consumers will choose AI search over traditional search like basic Google search?
Yeah, I can go first, and Jane, please feel free to add. I have a lot of energy on this topic that I don't think that I have a lot of energy on this topic, especially because look at this tectonic shift that has happened in the world that is completely fueled by the pace of adoption by consumers, right? Like I've said this throughout our sort of chat here today that this is one where it's not like the big tech has push something to the consumer, whether they want it or not, and they've just invested, and that's why it's happening. Like something like retail media happened like that, but this is not like that. This is different. This is where the big tech pushed changes, and then because the pace of adoption has been so fast, like think about OpenAI in like over the last 2 years in from when they launched the product to now, 800 million weekly users are basically like that kind of adoption has just not we've not seen that before. And so this one, so to now come back to your question, I think playing that wait and watch game is very risky in this time right now because the pace at which the expectation of the consumer is changing so fast that I think it's very risky for anyone to take that approach, let alone retail to take that approach to have like, we'll wait and see how this changes. Because this is so driven by like the the consumers here are not just passively consuming. They're actively wanting that and expecting that from the next shopping experience and from all their love brands or for any brand that they want to consider. They are expecting that now. So that's what I feel. But Jane, feel free to uh, like uh, how you would think about it from a brand perspective.
Yeah, I would just say the same. I mean, we know that the AI search result is getting more and more traction already, and it's been growing month over month. So it's certainly not something to sit and wait on. I think that as younger consumers take up more and more buying power, it's just going to become, you know, a larger part of the search world.
And what do you think is the most overlooked technical aspect of GEO that can make or break a brand's discoverability in AI-powered search results?
Yeah, a few thoughts on that. I think number one is that, you know, this thing that I said about there's a lot of geo reporting and brand visibility tools out there today that'll show you, hey, how did you rank this week on this platform and that platform and this and that, and then give you ideas about what the gaps are and how do you go fix them. I actually feel there's a better way to do that, which is what we do with PCO, that it from the get-go, the content needs to be AI generated and not like post. That you first get a human to generate all of this, you go put it out there, and then you wait for where the gaps are, and then you try to come and edit it. I feel like that approach will also not cut out for the pace and where we live in today and where this is going. And so I think this is some kind of a sort of gap I see in the market right now, in how there is a lot of focus on the brand visibility and all of that, versus more focus on how do you at scale from the get-go produce AI generated and optimized content and make sure it's an ongoing process, and just like the new way of how product information and content is managed at a brand, right? So that's number one. Number two is this is a really, really fast-paced evolution of GEO itself. There's a lot of stuff that is just evolving by the day. And so I also feel that over the next few months, there's going to be just a lot of evolution of what is good GEO in itself. And so some of the things that were not historically okay for SEO, we might be going through a whole different view of that in GEO. So what do I mean? Let me give you an example. So now in GEO, there is all this conversation about a new sort of shadow site, which is just for agents and bots. Now, historically in SEO, it was like this was like this was not as good if it was not done sort of in the right ethical manner for you to have a shadow site. And so it's just going to be, this is just evolving really fast, and the rules are going to change really fast. And so but at the same time, there would be a mix and match of different things that might be okay to do for GEO. And uh, we've got to make sure that we are all abreast with how that's evolving.
With voice search on the rise and performing better in a GEO context than it has to date, how do you expect to see product content optimization evolving to accommodate voice searches as well as image and video in the discovery and search process? Maybe Purva, if you want to take it, and then Jane.
Yeah, I think the good thing about PCO is that while it's grounded in sort of text-based data, voice, image, video assets are able to convert to text for context and that intent understanding, right? So, like fundamentally, like PCO can basically handle all the nuances of multimodal search and intent-driven queries, right? I think additionally, the it can handle things such as like multimodal alignment, cross-modal consistency, contextual metadata, all the composite indexing, all of which are basically critical, especially in the visual search scenarios. So I think overall, I feel like getting PCO right is going to help with whichever type of whichever medium through which this happens in the future.
Yeah, I would say kind of in addition to the last question, we've been working in the voice search area for a while too, and I think the really important thing on the brand side is that you have the resources available to actually build and to create the content needed. I think that this isn't just as easy as a rinse and repeat situation, that you really need to look at the content you're developing differently and how you're pushing the content out throughout your own channels. And so to me, and again, I'm just thinking it more from the brand side of things, it's really important to think through those resources that you have to help develop the right content that connect to that consumer, develop the right kind of content, because it's a lot. I mean, as everyone can imagine, I mean, we have hundreds of pages with content on them, to go through all of those and make sure, and new products that are constantly rolling out. So it's just making sure that you have the resources secured to actually do that work. It's really important.
Jane and Purva, thank you again for this great content and for answering all the questions from our audience. We really appreciate it. Before we wrap up, let me just take a moment to tell you about eMarketer's media channels. So you can visit eMarketer.com to register for upcoming live analyst and tech talk webinars and sign up for our newsletters. Don't forget to check out our podcasts, Behind the Numbers and Reimagining Retail, and the Banking and Payments Show. Listen everywhere you find podcasts or watch on Spotify and eMarketer's YouTube channel. You can keep an eye on your email for the link to today's playback, and of course, feel free to contact us if you have any other questions. Thank you all for your time, and thanks again to Jane, Purva, and the team at Lily AI and our eMarketer studio team behind the scenes for making this webinar possible. We'll see you all at the next Tech Talk.